hear you're ready for your dose of reality.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Dr. Quack Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Quack.
And I'm the important one, Mr. Mayhem. And today, it's a little bit of a conflicting kind of review. We're on our final step to the road to WrestleMania before we review what Vince is going to throw at us this time.
Yeah, we are at Wrestlemania 20, where it all begins again.
And while this was a step forward in the evolution of WrestleMania, the damn cobblestone tripped us up and we fell down. So it's mixed feelings on this one. We got a lot to talk about. I don't want to go too much into this, except this is one of those that the Peacock Network probably you'll not see anymore because Chris Benoit favored heavily into this pay-per-view. And according to all stories, rumors, indications, anything offensive, which Chris Benoit to them is offensive, will not be on the network. So let's go ahead and get into this.
There's going to be a lot of things that are offensive in this, according to them. But anyways, this took place at Madison Square Garden, and we opened up with the Harlem Choir. The Boys Choir of Harlem singing "America the Beautiful."
They did a great job. It's a very, very good organization. Yes, I agree. Well, let's give it up for them.
Yes.
They did a great job. It is a great organization. They're still around. They try and keep kids off the streets. They try and give them something else to be focused on besides singing. They do other community and charity work. So if you're interested, check them out. It's a good organization to give some support to.
Yes, and moving along here, they went for a video, The Legacy of WrestleMania. They've been doing this for a while now, and this is nothing new. We love it because it always brings back nostalgia, I guess.
And they always show the good parts. It's one of the things that's nice about nostalgia is it always brings up the good things, the good memories of WrestleMania.
Yeah, and on commentary, we had Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler representing Raw.
And Taz and Michael Cole representing SmackDown, and we've destroyed Michael Cole at lengths. This was the worst of the worst possible from Cole and Taz.
Good job, Shoelace. Yeah. Anyways, so we're going to move on here. Opening match, we had John Cena, Thugonomics John Cena, Basic Thugonomics, Word Life, taking on the Big Show for the U.S. title.
Yeah, we start right off with a SmackDown show, so we get started right off with the dulcet tones of Michael Cole and Taz. I didn't get to see a lot of Thugonomics John Cena. This is around the time that military requirements had me going overseas a lot, so I didn't get to see a whole lot of this. It was a decent match. John Cena's first WrestleMania. The crowd really enjoyed it. The thing I was most happy about, no spinner United States title. This was the regular old United States title. And the fake Eddie Guerrero finish where John Cena was going to hit him with the chain and then threw the chain so the referee had to chase it. And then he hit him with his brass knucks. I did like that. I thought it was a nice little ending. 2.5 stars.
Yeah, I mean, this was John Cena's first title win, period. I really loved this match. The opening promo by John Cena, it's what people loved about him before he went to that PG era. They're all hoping for that heel turn again. Yeah, I love that. I gave this match 3 stars. I felt like this was a really good setting of the table. I hope it continued, but we're going to tell you about that.
Yeah, the crowd really got hot, and they got hotter as the match went along, so I see why you went 3 stars. I didn't think it was a 3-star match, but it was a good opener.
Yeah, and then we pan over to Eric Bischoff telling Jonathan Coachman to find The Undertaker.
And along the way, we see the legends of WWE, like Dr. Tom Pritchard, Johnny Nitro, a few other people I didn't care about. So, yay. Then we went into an Evolutions promo. Yay.
You got excited during that. I remember.
You did.
Yeah. It's Evolution, man. And, your buddy Dave Bautista, Randy Orton.
Yeah, looking like his less than manly self that he always looks. He looked like he had a hot date later, and we'll leave it at that.
Moving along here. Yeah, we had the World Tag Team titles. This was Raw's titles, by the way. La Resistance taking on the Dudley Boys, taking on Garrison Cade and Mark Jindrak, and the champions Booker T and RVD in a fatal four-way.
And as the story goes throughout the night, this was Raw, so we got the King and Jim Ross, who were the best part of this match. This match was not good by any stretch of the imagination. La Resistance, there's a lot of talk on the networks and on websites about the Dudley Boys especially, but a lot of other tag teams, how much they hated working with La Resistance, how untalented they were. This version was Rene Dupree and Robert Conway, who later became Rob Conway, who amazingly still has a wrestling career, and I don't know why. Garrison Cade, a talented man. Unfortunately, he has passed away way too early. He died at like 26 or 27.
Yeah.
Way too young with the very untalented Mark Jindrak. The Dudleys, they're awesome. There's nothing bad I can say about the Dudleys except they got old and they had to stop wrestling as a tag team. Other than that, I've got nothing bad to say about the Dudleys. And RVD and Booker T, the thing they did with the WWF in the early 2000s, Booker T's a multiple-time tag champ, so let's put him with people and make him look like a tag team wrestler. But this pairing didn't really make sense. Luckily, RVD got the pin on Rob Conway. They retained their titles in a awesome 1.5-star match.
1.5. Wow. I went a little higher, gave it 2.5. Remember, this was the ruthless aggression era. This was in between 2001, where you were ending the whole Monday Night Wars and going into the PG era a couple years later. So, I mean, they were kind of figuring it out. It got a little better, but then it went PG.
They didn't figure it out because this match was an unaccompanied car crash. Everybody was moving constantly. You could have had 12 cameras on there, and you could still not have kept up with all the action, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah, this was definitely, it was overbooked. I will definitely agree on that. Moving along here, we had Chris Jericho taking on Christian. This was all about the love triangle with Trish Stratus.
This was another Raw match, so again, the best part of this match was the King and Jerry Lawler. Actually, no, that's not fair. This match was decent. Chris Jericho was still Lionheart. Chris Jericho. Christian hadn't yet become the host of the Peep Show, but he was starting to point to his peeps.
That's right.
So it was starting to come around. This is when Christian actually started to become entertaining.
Yes.
But he hadn't discovered it quite yet. He was still a little dry at this point. And the love triangle, I don't remember much of it, but it was stupid, especially the way they had Trish Stratus leave with Christian at the end. Christian won this match. It was a decent match, not great. Way too long for the story they were trying to tell, especially with all the stuff going on this pay-per-view with Raw and SmackDown, the first pay-per-view with Raw and SmackDown. But I did go 2.5 stars. The match technically was sound.
Yeah, I went 2.5. This kind of helped Christian later on become a good heel, like throughout that year and the next year. So I loved it for that. Trish Stratus doing a heel turn is not exactly the best thing I love to see, but it worked.
Yeah. Like I said, it was decent, but it wasn't great. But it's one of those, you're right. Here's an example of setting the table for months and years down the road with how Christian learned to be a much better heel.
Yes, he did. And moving along here, we had Lillian Garcia in the back with Mick Foley and The Rock. And that was one of the funniest promos where he looked at the Hurricane and
Rosie and Hurricane, they were back there eating food. He called them the Hamburglar and Grimace.
Yes.
Then we got Jimmy Snuka and Don Morocco, 2 members who joined the Hall of Fame that year, which we'll talk about that here in a little bit. They did a great tribute to that, but we'll get to that when it comes up in the show.
Yeah, I mean, they were basically, it was The Rock coming back from Hollywood from making his first film. It was Scorpion King was there?
I believe this was, this would have been right around 2004 Scorpion King time frame.
Yeah, it wasn't quite Doom yet, but, you know, thank God.
Yeah, but so this was, we went a 3-on-2 match. This was, Mick Foley had been feuding with Evolution, specifically Randy Orton. And so The Rock came back to do the Rock and Sock connection against Evolution. And this was a really good match, but the thing we kept chanting is something that fans in the crowd that are smart marks, which we've gone over that. If you're not familiar with the term, look it up for the kayfabe word of the day for what a smart mark is. But we're about 15 minutes into the match, we were, take it home. This match was way too long, but it was enjoyable to watch. It took, this was another one like Christian and Jericho, it took up too much time on the show.
Yeah, I mean, I gave it 2.5 stars. Evolution ended up coming out on top on this. But, I mean, it's set up for better feuds, like with Foley and Randy Orton. They had a big hardcore match, no DQ. That was really a good shining moment to help Randy Orton build his career.
I actually went 3 1/4, so I went higher than you did on this one. But my big thing was butts.
Yeah, I mean that was just where I was. And now I'm going to give you my Quack Attack. And this one is very appropriate because this was the segment where they decided to introduce the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2004. And there's a lot of Hall of Fame classes, but this class in particular, I think, was the best. You want to tell them who was in it?
Yes, before I get into that real quick, the WWE's Hall of Fame actually existed since 1994. Andre the Giant was the first member entered into the Hall of Fame, but they never had anything before that. Arnold Skolin went in 96. Ivan Putski went in 96. There were a couple of other people along the way. This was the first time they actually had a big class, introduced them all to us, brought them out, explained their accolades. And this was kind of like MLB when they had their first big Hall of Fame class. There was a lot of people. There was 11 names on this. But this was probably, as he said, and I will concur, one of the strongest and most powerful and most recognized classes. So, in the 2004 Hall of Fame, we had Greg the Hammer Valentine, Don the Rock Morocco, the Junkyard Dog, Superstar Billy Graham, Sergeant Slaughter, Tito Santana, Harley Race, Handsome Harley Race, or as he was here, the King Harley Race, Jesse the Body Ventura, Bobby the Brain Heenan, Big John Studd, and opening the Celebrity Wing, Pete Rose.
That's right. And I'm going to tell you, if you want to ever look that up, look up that Hall of Fame class induction speeches. Bobby Heenan went on for probably about, 30 minutes or so?
About 30 minutes.
But it was probably the funniest 30 minutes you'll get out of it.
And then at the end, him tearfully pointing up and saying the only thing missing was Gorilla Monsoon, who was his best friend who had died several years earlier. Bobby Heenan, his voice will sound different for those of you who were not familiar. Bobby Heenan died of throat cancer. He had been diagnosed in 2002, so his voice was not the same, but it was still the same Bobby Heenan, the same energy, the same power, and the same ability to entertain.
Yeah, I mean, we went from that great segment to an evening gal match. Sable and Tori Wilson against Jackie Gata and Stacy Keibler.
Oh, man, they called this is another match that will probably be edited off the cock. The Playboy evening gown match, and I'm not going to spray the women here. None of them are talented enough to have a wrestling match. They're talented enough to be on Playboy. That's all aesthetics. It has nothing to do with any real skills. But I'm going to give this to the SmackDown people who won the coin toss and got to call this debacle. Taz and Michael Cole. We always thought it was bad hearing Jerry the King Lawler say puppies.
Testicles.
You guys were prime examples of what Chester the Molester sounds like. You guys were horrible. I swear. I thought somebody was going to get raped in the crowd just listening to these guys. These guys were all over them, and they said nothing useful. All they were talking about was the evening gowns, and they took off the evening gowns, and how beautiful they looked, and they wanted to see more fall off of them. They sounded like creepy old men. Don't ever do that again. Stop it. And by the way, Stacy Keibler lost when she got pinned by Tori Wilson. Half star.
Yeah, one of 3 Tori Wilson wins at WrestleMania here. We already covered down the cold case, but anyways, yeah, I gave it 2 stars. Really, I mean, I get it. We were towards the very end of sex appeal in professional wrestling because, as you can see, that kind of went away.
Ugh.
But moving along, we had a great innovative match, in my opinion. We had the Cruiserweight Classic.
Yeah, this was really nice. This was kind of a prelude to what they call the gauntlet matches. What they did is they had the Cruiserweight champion, who was Chavo Guerrero at the time. He came into the match last by the nature of him being the champion. And all the other members, which were Nunzio, Jamie Noble, Tajiri, Akio Sato, Funaki, Shannon Moore, Ultimo Dragon, Billy Kidman, and Rey Mysterio. They all stood around the ring and they all were told what their number was, but nobody else knew. And when one person was pinned, you jumped in and the match just kept going instead of waiting for them for that next person to come down to the ring. So it was very innovative. SmackDown got to call this match. Chavo did retain on this one. 2 3/4 stars. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, I went 3 stars on this, and it's very rare I go high on a Cruiserweight match, but this one here, I felt like was very innovative. It was a great, use of time for WrestleMania to happen. So I really loved this match. 3 stars. For me.
Shannon Moore started off with Ultimo Dragon. At the end, Chavo Guerrero pinned Rey Mysterio Jr. The only thing I do want to bring up, poor Chavo Classic, Chavo Guerrero Sr., he looked like Cheech Marin. He was starting to get on in years.
He was.
But all in all, I really did enjoy it. It was a good match.
Yeah, now I'm going to move on to my 2-finger salute.
And this is also appropriate.
And this is very appropriate here. We had 2 guys that were pretty much on their way out of the WWF, and they decided to book a match against them.
And it was known they were on their way.
Yes, Bill Goldberg taking on Brock Lesnar. And Stone Cold Steve Austin was the only part of this match that really doesn't deserve a 2-finger salute. He was the only reason that this match got any kind of credit on this, because the fans were chanting Hogan, the fans were chanting boring, the fans hated this match, we hated this match. I'm a Brock Lesnar fan, but taking on Goldberg is one of the worst matchups you could put him up against. I get it. You want to have Godzilla take on King Kong. This was not the way to do it.
Yep, and the other part of this match that does not deserve the 2-finger salute, the King and JR, God bless them, they tried. They really tried to put this over. And then halfway through the match, they just basically shut up because they knew there was nothing they could do. The crowd chanted, "You sold out." The crowd chanted, "Na na na na, hey hey, goodbye." The crowd chanted Hogan. The crowd chanted, "We want something else." They chanted just about everything except yay, because there was nothing to yay about this match.
This match was about 15 minutes, and 10 minutes of them was just stare down, looking at each other, trying to taunt each other before it even worked. God, I know you were gassed in 2020. I didn't know you were that gassed in 2004, Brock Lesnar. Come on. Yep. And that's why I kiss my 2-finger salute.
Yeah, just to give you an idea how bad it is for those of you that have never seen it, after 6 1/4 minutes, 6 minutes and 15 seconds of walking around the ring and yelling at each other and taunting each other, we get a tie-up the last 44 seconds, and then they just push away from each other. That's at the halfway point.
Yeah, and by the way, I give this my lowest rating on this card, 1 1/4 stars.
You gave it a 1-star performance?
I did.
I gave it an 1/8 of a star.
Wow. Yeah.
This match did a lot of damage to the WWF that lasted for about 3 years. This match alone. This match doesn't deserve no stars because Stone Cold Steve Austin was out there and he stunned both of them and he drank beer and he did his part afterwards to try and keep the crowd alive. But the crowd, you could see them looking at their watches like, how much time do we still have left? So 1/8 of a star.
Yeah, I'm with you. That 1 1/4 went to Steve Austin, the broadcast team. But anyways, fatal 4-way tag team match here. The WWE title, the SmackDown belt. Scotty 2 Hotty and Rikishi are the champions, taking on the APA, the Basham Brothers, and the world's greatest tag team.
Yeah, this was SmackDown's. Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas, for those of you who are not familiar, were the world's greatest tag team. Charlie Haas used to tag with his brother Russ Haas. They were the Haas brothers. And then, unfortunately, Russ Haas passed away. So Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin were a team. And it wasn't the APA so much at this time. They were still called the Acolyte Protection Agency. They were not called the APA.
Yes.
The Basham Brothers, very talented guys from OVW, that if you ever want to find out how badly they were treated, check out Jim Cornette when he talks about the Basham Brothers, how they lost their hair because of people power.
Thank you, fuck you, bye, click. Yeah, look up that segment. You'll understand what I'm saying.
And Scotty 2 Hotty and Rikishi because Grandmaster Sexay had been fired at this time because he got caught coming across the border with some drugs from Canada. So he did come back eventually, but at this time it was just Scotty and Rikishi. And just like the other Fatal 4-Way Tag Team match, there was way too much going on. This one was much faster, so it was even harder to keep up with. My rating was, who cares?
Who cares? I gave it 2 stars. They retained the titles. Like I said, it was about as bad as the other one, but it was later in the card, so it filled more time.
Yep, and then we had a nice little segment, Jesse the Body Ventura. A thing that they always used to do with Jesse Ventura was, because he was a movie star, Vince used to give him his special accolade. Well, instead of his special accolade, he got to come out and do a special interview. And he interviewed somebody that he now publicly hates, Donald Trump.
Yeah, these guys were friends in 2004.
And they shook hands and they hung out and they talked about wrestling. Jesse talked about trying to get Trump to support him, trying to put a wrestler in the White House in 2008. It was a lot of fun considering all the political drama which happened 8 years later. This was a lot of fun to watch, and I really enjoyed it. It was a nice little have fun segment.
That's right, 100%. 100%. That's exactly what he was going for right there.
There you go.
Yeah, moving along here. Howard Finkel coming back to announce. Believe me, he used to announce all the WrestleManias, but he came back for this match here. Molly Holly taking on Victoria for the women's title. If Molly Holly loses, she got her head shaved. If she won, she became champion.
Yep, this was another Raw show, and first of all, congratulations, Molly Holly. You're going into the Hall of Fame this year.
Yes.
Well deserved.
Yes.
Taking on a very talented woman, which I'm surprised she's not in yet, Victoria.
Should be.
She should be in. And this was a good, fun match. Women's matches were just starting to pull out of the Diva pillow fight, and they actually started having some real competition around this time. Trish Stratus, Lita, Victoria, Molly Holly really started to put, Gail Kim started to push the talented side of the women's wrestling versus the aesthetic side of women's wrestling. And this was a 2.5-star match. I really enjoyed it, with another half star because Molly Holly did her best after she lost to not get her hair cut, and then she actually sat there. They went on to another match, and as they walked by, Molly Holly was still in the barber chair getting her head shaved. So good job, Molly Holly. Excellent. That's the way to be a team player. So 2.5 plus the other half, full 3 stars.
Yeah, I'm basically going with that route right there. I'm going 3 stars total for this. Pinned her with the backslide. That was a rarity in professional wrestling, especially that time of day.
And even more for women, because I think that's the first so far, only one I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's very rare to see in general. But yeah, it was a great match. Really enjoyed it. And now we're going to move on to the next match here. This is a great one here. Kurt Angle against Eddie Guerrero for the WWE title.
Yeah, whichever one the SmackDown was at the time.
Yeah.
They really put together, this was about a 2-minute package to explain the backstory that Eddie Guerrero was the champion and Kurt Angle was upset at him because Kurt Angle was doing the intensity, integrity, and intelligence, the 3 I's.
It's true.
And that he felt that Eddie Guerrero, they brought up his real life recovery from drug and alcohol abuse, that he was not a good representative to be the champion. And they really put over the intensity between the two, that it wasn't hatred, it was personal demons. And I thought they did a great job of that. Great chain wrestling to open this match. This is another one where young guys who are wanting to come up in the wrestling business, if you want to see what WWF wants to see when you do your Snapple previews and your Snapple matches, chain wrestling is what they want to see. This was a great example. I went 3 3/4. Excellent, excellent match.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there, 3.5. I can see why you went 3 3/4. I love the finish because Eddie was selling his ankle like it was hurt. He took his boot off, or loosened it up rather. Kurt puts the ankle out on him again, thinking he's got him. He slips out of it, pulls in a small package and hooks the ropes. I love that. It's typical Eddie, lie, cheat, and steal, but he ended up retaining his title.
Yeah, it was a good match. We'll move on. We'll just call it that, and we'll call it move on.
Yeah, and we had another Undertaker sighting. It was wild because they buried him earlier that year. Earlier in November, they ended up burying him. Vince McMahon and Undertaker had a buried alive match. Kane dumped a bunch of dirt on him, and they thought he was gone. But of course, he came back because Kane took on the Undertaker.
Yeah, second match between Kane and the Undertaker at WrestleMania. The first one, obviously, he won that one at Mania 10, I believe, with the 3 tombstones.
Yes.
And now we get them here a scant 10 years later in another match that was not as good as the first one. It was good. I think Undertaker was recovering from a broken leg or from an injury. He wasn't moving as well, wasn't moving as crisp. It was nothing special. Jim Ross put over that he was 12-0 at WrestleMania, so this is really the first time I can remember them really talking about any kind of streak at WrestleMania.
Yes.
I did go 2.5 stars. Some of that was for the history of, 10 years later they did it again, but it really wasn't anything special.
Yeah, I mean, I went 3 stars. I felt like this was the last time that you got to see The Undertaker before he went Santa Claus mode and came out once a year. I thought it was a good match. I gave it 3 stars. Taker course going on.
You made me break kayfabe twice.
That's how it's done, folks.
Twice.
Moving on to the main event, folks. Main event. Chris Benoit, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, the big gold belt, the World Heavyweight title.
Yep, Raw was the appropriate one to call this. I would not have trusted Taz and Michael Cole to call this match. So this match got the right commentary team as well. I have nothing bad to say about this match. Nothing. Triple H put on good color. Shawn Michaels put on good color. The intensity existed all the way across the board. There was not a lot of shenanigans going on. They didn't spend a lot of time outside the ring. They didn't spend a lot of time outside in the crowd. 4 3/4 stars. This is as close to perfection, in my opinion, that you can get.
Yeah, that's exactly what I went with. I believe this is the definition. If you're going to have a triple threat match, this is the one you should watch to learn from, because this one here really took care of each other. They had 2 in, 1 out. They were working it constantly. They had double teams. You had blood. You had action. You had it all.
And they didn't do too much action. That's something that happens sometimes in triple threats, where you got all this happening in 2 different places, 2 or 3 different places. They kept dedicated to the hard camera, to the single moving cam. They tried to keep the action. They tried to show you the story. They tried to tell you what was going on. Chris Benoit winning the world title in the World Wrestling Federation, or I think they were the E at this time. I think they had gotten the F out.
Yep, they got the F out.
But again, unfortunately, I can't say 5-star, but this is basically a 5-star match without calling it a 5-star match.
Yeah, and my favorite part of this whole match was the ending, where you had Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit meeting in the ring, both world champions, and celebrating with the confetti coming down. That was one of the greatest moments that will live in my life as far as professional wrestling goes.
I agree with that. So with the end of 2004, things start to fall off the rails for the two men in the ring shortly after that. Eddie Guerrero passes away in 2005. Chris Benoit becomes involved in his problems that have now erased him from the World Wrestling Entertainment and professional wrestling in general in 2007. So this is the last time we get to see these two men here together on the grandest stage of all, and it was great.
Yeah, so this is the end of our preview to WrestleMania, except we got one more. We're getting ready to look at this year's WrestleMania. Look for that preview coming out Wednesday, because that'll be out there. We're going to go over the matches before WrestleMania hits. Oh my God.
And the only thing I want to say about this in leaving, last year's two-night spectacular was not spectacular. Let's see if they learned from last time and they give us a better show this year.
That's right, and make sure you only can check it out. The E is only on the cock, so make sure you check that out. I'm your host, Dr. Quack.
And I'm the important one, Mr. Mayhem, saying like, share, subscribe. We got a lot of things coming out. Follow the Champion of Champions tournament. Follow the Dr. Quack podcast. Be watching for all the new content.
And get ready for Santa Claus Undertaker. Does he make another appearance? I'm out.